What's up, everyone? Bradley Jack Design here with another Discord critique. This time we're going to take a look at some graphics that members of my Discord created. I'm going to give you feedback, tell you what I would change, what I like about it, and just overall sense of the design. So first off, we've got this design by Lexi, Jalen Suggs' design of the Orlando Magic from Gonzaga, selected 5th overall. So overall composition, what we have here, we've got some text, we've got a couple players, and we've got sort of a scene at the bottom of something I'm assuming in Orlando, tropical sort of having to do with Florida, which makes sense. So right off the bat, when I look at this graphic, I'm trying to figure out where I'm supposed to look compositionally. So like for me, I like the text. This is a good layout of the text with contrast, bigger, small text, little logo. This is all working well. It's just sort of the same similarities that these two have size-wise. I would have played around with that a little bit more. Maybe make this huge Jalen Suggs. So like, let me make a layer here. Maybe this guy is like, you know, here sitting down on a building, and this is all huge in the background like this. And then this guy is smaller right here. You know, size contrast between your subject is always good. I think, I don't know, Discord probably destroyed the quality of this because there's some artifacting. Not sure what's going on right here. If this is intentional, this might be your logo. That would make sense to me. I understand why people might put logos in the middle of designs in case someone tries to take it or something. I would just toss it in the corner, you know, because it distracts from what you're trying to create. So I don't think it helps the composition. I think if you made him bigger and made the background bigger too, it would sell that he's sitting on a building like this. And then maybe have a little bit, I see you do have some sort of, a little bit of reflection going on here, which is nice. I think maybe if you dip his toe in the water or something like that, it would sell it better because there's a big shadow here. And it doesn't match up. Oops. The shadow doesn't match up with like where the shadows are here because the light source is coming from probably the top right. Let's see what else here. I think it's hard because I think the quality got killed on Discord, but I think the clippings could be a little tweaked here on the side here. Little contracting in a little bit. I think the lighting's weird on this ball, but that's probably just from the photo. Nothing you can do there. All in all, I think just play with composition a little bit differently. Try and really accentuate the size contrast of your subject. So you don't have two items that are competing. You just have sort of these three things that are just kind of hanging out in the space, but they're not working together. So that is what I would do for that. Next up, we have this Phillips graphic. By SA, which is the name in Discord. Sorry if I don't have the name correct anywhere else. So this is a Brett Phillips Devil Rays graphic. From initial looks at it, there's a lot going on. So we've got this stuff going on up here. We've got this plane sort of zoom in. We've got this sort of faded tree. We've got him down here. Baseball is fun. Put on for my city. Brett Phillips in the dead center. I don't know where you want me to look, because it's just there's stuff everywhere. I think if you had a more simple composition, it would flow a little easier. Like I like the city in the background that you have here with the white, so that the white contrasting with the city photo is great. And then you've got big player, little player, which is good. I think the positioning of his name and his number is odd because it's dead center. And there's some effects on it that like I'm not crazy about, just like the generic sort of bevel and emboss and the gradient on it. You've got, I think you're trying to go for maybe a metallic look. What I probably would have done was put him more in the composition because he's just kind of like hanging off the side here. Like get him more in the composition. This is all in good down here. I think you can tone down a little bit of the blur on the bat just because it's not on the front of the bat. It's just on the back. I think if it was on all of it, because the front of the bat would theoretically be blurred. I think I get what you're trying to do, though. You're trying to show like a motion trail with it. Contract a little bit on this cutout, or tweak it a little bit. You can see that fringe, that dark fringe around it. That's just something I'm going to nitpick on clipping things out. I think you've got too much stuff up here. I would just get rid of all of this stuff. Maybe keep put on for my city somewhere. But like, you've got put on for my city is one font. You've got this is one font. You've got this is one font. You've got too many fonts going on. I would simplify that a little bit. But all in all, I like the attempt of what you're doing here. I do like the size contrast you have with things. Just compositionally, like, I think if you had him more here with his hand pointing out and he was down here, you know, sitting in the background like you have, this guy can stay the same down here. Nix this, nix this, nix this, move this down to like here and get rid of these. I think the composition would flow just a little bit better because right now it's a bit chaotic. Oh, and I drew on the whole thing and didn't do another layer. So let me back out of that. So that's probably what I would have done with that. I would suggest not like ghosting some of these logos or some of these things because it looks a little weird. And I would just get rid of the plane. I don't think it's needed for the Devil Rays design. Next up, we've got this graphic by Universe Graphics, Dan. So we've got composition here. I think this is Kamaru Usman? I think it is. I could be wrong. But we got a bunch of stuff floating in the background. We've got the octagon behind him, some ghosted images up here. That's something I know I always did when I was beginning out. Ghosting the image. It gives a nice texture of something that makes sense in the background. I think sort of compositionally, so I'm just going to do new guide layout. Like, I would have scooted him over, but that's me being like super asymmetrical, picky sort of thing. I mean, he's fine where he is. I would have maybe scooted him over a little bit. So overall composition, you know, and I would have moved this in. I would have had these guys share the same spacing from the side. But again, that's like me nitpicking little tiny things. But again, this photo might not have, it might have ended right here on the end. So probably couldn't do anything. As for the lighting down here, so I think the whole thing you wanted to do with this was sort of do lighting with these flames and stuff coming from the bottom and sparks. With this edge, you can see a little of the black fringe. I would get rid of that because it would be pure light from where this light source is coming from. I think you do a good job of having some of the light hit these rocks in certain spots. Like this is nice where it's really bright up here, kind of bleeding off here, but dark here. Like that's good on these two rocks, and these are the exact same rocks as you can see. You maybe find a slightly different rock photo. You know, you can tell that this is the same as this, maybe flip one around just so it's a little bit different. You can see it in the back here. It's fine to use the same stuff over and over, but you don't want them to be able to be like, oh, this is the same as this, which is the same as this. As for the lighting here, I feel like you could have played a little bit more with highlights on what areas would get hit. You know, this is all getting hit, but like some red would hit in his face. I don't think you need, I get what you're trying to do here is you're trying to like turn him into like half rock or half skull, you know, half rock. I don't think the effect does it for me in this instance, and it could be because it's just so dark and so drastic. I would have probably pulled that back a little bit. I like the flying rocks in the air. Maybe give these a little bit more of a blur because they are moving around, something like that. Maybe a spin blur or path blur, something like that. And then you know, I'm trying to think like background wise, like you can see here where it's clearly bright behind the fence, but it's not here. It works over here because it's black and black, but like if there was a background here behind here and this is supposed to be transparent, theoretically there would need to be something bleeding on in the back. But the composition's good. I like the theme. I like what's going on down here. I think he just playing a little bit more with some blurs and just playing with some more lighting effects on him might sell this a little bit more. Next, we've got this Cade Cunningham graphic by Sunny Digitals. Overall, you know, I like what's going on here. I know people talked about this a little bit in our Discord already. One question I had, which he answered, was why have this car down here? You know, and it was sort of a Detroit Motor City thing, which makes sense, and that's fine by me. have a reason why you have the car in there. If you wanted to do a design with him in a car, that's fine. That's the reasoning. That's your reasoning. I'm not going to question that. That's what you wanted to do. So there's a lot of good things going on in this graphic. Let me put a new guide layout. So, he's dead center. There's more space over here. Maybe move him over a teeny bit, but I'd have to see what that looks like. I do like the text in the background and how it plays with this blue coming into him, and how this is all contrasting. I really do like all the colors coming from this light overlay you have on here. I don't know, I think I just like the look of that. You've got a lot of textures going on in the background here, but I don't think they really deter from anything. While I'm zoomed in like this, I'm not terribly crazy about all of the grain, but again, if you're trying to do something with a lot of grain, you did it here, that's fine. I think this right here is a little hard to read. This is fine here, because really you read this like I tons. You know it's supposed to say pistons. Maybe make this white just so it's a little bit more legible. But I like what you've got going on here on the sides with some text. I'm not 100%. Okay, so it's saying Cunningham. It's sort of just a textural element, which is good. I like that. I do like the little bit of blur down here on this sort of fence. I probably would have made this bigger because it seems like it's really small to be so blurred. But the coloring on that's kind of nice with whatever overlay you have on it. I think the coloring's pretty successful from this sort of double exposure thing you have going on here. I don't know why. It's just sort of like some trees, in a scene like that. Like, I don't get how that fits into the whole Motor City vibe you have going on here. But I like what you did to the car. The Detroit Pistons logo on the front that you manipulated is a little wonky. Looks fine here on the wheels, which is good. Maybe tone down these flares. Do I want to tone down these flares? They make sense. So maybe not. And the fire back here is kind of cool. I think if you put a little bit of yellow or orange or red coming off color-wise, you do it here on the window. I think if you did it on the blue, I think it would be a little bit more successful. And then, just subjective stuff like, do you like that his eyes are super blue? Does he have blue eyes? If he has blue eyes and they're super blue like that, that's fine. I think they're a little too blue. I think they detract from what you have going on, but they do match the saturation of everything you have going on. All in all, I like the colors of this, and I think a lot of this is successful. I think the shadow underneath the car is a little too dark, and that's just coming from someone who had to draw shadows under cars at one of his jobs. Because like it wouldn't be this dark over here. It would mainly be super dark under the wheels, the darkest, because that's the closest spot, and then it would lighten up here, lighten up around the edges. And even with this, maybe some of the yellow hit the ground or something like that. But overall, textures are nice. Coloring's nice. I think the effect and editing of him is good. I think you did a decent job cutting him out as well, considering he has wild hair. That would be difficult to clip. I think you went in and painted it black, so like some of these have really hard edges of where this black is. I think if you blended that in a little bit more, it's probably something I would have done. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid design. Next up, we've got Unknown Glory. He's got this Kobe Bryant graphic. Right off the bat, I would try and find high resolution photos. Like, the thing that sticks out to me is this really pixelated Bryant. Like, this detracts from everything. In your eye, it's sort of an eyesore when you look at it. You can't stop looking at it because it contrasts so much from everything else, because most of the other photos are normal quality where this is blurry. So really, it's like baking or cooking. Like, the final is only going to be as good as the ingredients you use. So if you use a pixelated photo, it's going to hurt the final product. And that goes for anyone designing. Now, this isn't just pointing you out. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so the back shape of this is the Lakers logo. So Lakers L. I mean, I like what you're doing here compositionally with the collage aspect you have here. I keep looking at the NBA logo because I'm like, that's not the right NBA logo. It just looks odd to me, but it's because it's Kobe, so that's fine. I just keep going to it because I'm like, it's not right. So things that I would focus on here, like this is nice. I like how you've got big head here and you've got trophies going on. I probably would have photoshopped out his feet here because this is just confusing, because this photo of Kobe is sort of detaching it from his legs here. I would just get rid of these because they're confusing. I probably would have played a little bit, and I've said this before, size contrast on these, because these are all the same size. These three are at least. So like maybe take this one out. And maybe make this one super small here and have this be the main focus. Because otherwise you're going, I'm going to look at these guys and just keep spinning around in circles, looking around. Now you do have this guy yellow is different than all the other yellow. They're all sort of muted, which is kind of nice color contrast wise. But I probably would have kept them the same. And if you had the size contrast, you would have been able to determine which ones were different from a visual standpoint. But I like the collage that's going on. I probably would have put just like a faint texture in the background, but having all the white space is good. I think that's solid. So those are a couple things that I probably would tweak initially from this design, but I do like the sort of whole collage aspect of things. We've got this made by VLP. Maybe you recognize his logo right here. We've got a nice Anthony Davis composition here. So from looking at this initially, there are a couple things that caught my eye. Like the lighting right here is really nice. Now, I don't know if that's from the original photo or if that's something the designer did, but it's really nice. And I think having the light down here in the shadow, you've got this nice spotlight sort of hitting him here and something blocking it so it doesn't touch his upper body. I think this is really strong. I don't know if his shoes are supposed to be that color. They might be. They just look like an odd color, but that, you know, it could just be me because there's so much light hitting them. I feel like these should be brighter because you have all this light hitting the ground, and since there's such a harsh shadow, this should be brighter. I think that's what it is. I like what we've got going on here with sort of the lens overlays down here at the bottom. But then once we get to the background, it does sort of fit with how dark Anthony Davis is, and he's got the creepy eyes, which I think is done fine. But outside of that, like, I don't understand the point of the crows. And based on this lighting, you know, we've got a lighting source coming from here, but then on the buildings, the light source is coming from a different area. So this light source is sort of counteracting this light source. So I would try and make that the same. You know, you could find a photo of this skyline here, darken it yourself, and I don't think you did that, but you can darken it yourself and then lighten up areas manually from the side that the same light source is coming from. So that's what I would tweak from this graphic. But again, I like the lighting on this photo. You either did a great job lighting this photo, or you found a good photo to use. And you did a good job. Foreground, background, it's definitely apparent in this design. But again, without context, I don't understand why the crows are there, because they don't really have anything to do with the Lakers. It could just be a spooky sort of Halloween thing. Crows are spooky. He's got spooky eyes now. That would make sense to me if that was what you wanted to do. Next up, we got this graphic from, I'm gonna say Sam. What do we got going on here? Why do these exist? It's weird. Okay, so for first looks, I think it's this great graphic of Mo. You've got big guy in the background, nice big head here, and you've got, I don't even know if you cut it out. I think you just tweak the background so you can see it better, which is fine. Or you cut it out and it looks good. There's good contrast with the background, which is nice. And then this double exposure here of him, dead center, is good. That's something I always like to see, which I've harped on a little bit. New guide from layout. You know, he's pretty much dead center here, which is good. You've got the text. You've got the logo dead center. I think the text is a little off to the left. Maybe move it over to the right just a little bit. But overall, I think this is a pretty strong composition. There's not really much I would change with it. You know, look, we've got the logo right here in the corner. That's nice. Um, Something about his mouth here was bugging me. I don't know if his teeth were too white, like over here. Maybe brighten up some of this area a little bit. There's a little bit of stuff I would have tweaked with the clipping here. You know, a little thing on his nose looks a little odd. And then when you get down to his neck and his beard, it's a little choppy, but again, some of these images are hard to figure out and do that. But I think this is all good. There's not really anything I would change with this other than some sort of alignment things and a little bit of the clipping. Pretty simple design. I probably would have added a bunch of random stuff to this that's unnecessary, textures or lighting or, you know, a texture on this, but it's not really needed. Overall, I think it's a pretty strong graphic. Next up, we got this by Bradley Seaton. As you can see here, Bradley Seaton design. Right off the bat, this is a personal thing that I would probably move this just because I get why you're putting it here, but I would just have it consistent in all of your graphics or something. Just scoot it in the corner because I just want to look here. Like I just want to look and stare at this here, which isn't great. Overall composition's good. We've got head over here. Maybe find a different image. I'm not mad that you use the same image, but if you're going to do that, make sure they're lined up the same. So, you know, this one stops here. This one's a little closer to the top. I think just if you're going to do something with symmetry, make sure everything is symmetrical. I think with these heads here and with these lights here, I think some of the lighting is super aggressive. I think you can tone this back a little bit and it would improve the design. I like that you're trying to do some of this stuff and that's good. But I think some of it is a little too aggressive. Just pull it back a little bit. Maybe toss a blend if on it so it doesn't touch the blacks as much. But the composition is good with big, small, sort of foreground stuff with the rocks. You've got some green on the rocks, which is good. Got a lot of skulls going on here. You know, you could have been a little bit more symmetrical with the skulls. I don't know if that would have actually helped though. But I think tone down a little bit of the graphics. I think you've got him here sitting in the chair good. I think that's pretty solid. But just pull back. And I do that a lot. I'll make something for a client and then I'll be like, okay, I need to pull back some of the effects I put on it. It's a little too harsh. And it looks like some of the effects you've got going on here, you can see the JPEG artifacting in some of these flames. Again, I don't know if that's Discord or if that's the flames itself, but that's something I would make sure you're using the highest quality graphics you can. But yeah, just like this mainly is super dark for all these lighting. It's just, I think there's too much contrast with it. Same down here. A little too intense on some of the effects, but overall the composition's solid, so I'm not too upset about that. Next up, we got this Joe Burrow design by Klatsky Edits. We've got Burrow here, tiger in the front, a lot of black and white tigers, sort of the style. It's got it, you know, buried up here. You've got a lot of, like, you've got your logo on here, like in every corner. Like I think that's a little too much. I don't think you need it. Just put it in one corner. Give a little room to breathe. I think that will work out a little bit better for you because it's just kind of, it's like an irritating thing. I think this guy's good here. I would have made this guy a little bit smaller for size contrast. Get rid of the greens. You're doing this white tiger design. You've got these nice green stains, reflections from where the ground would be. Go in with like a hue and saturation layer. Select those greens, desaturate them. I think that would help. I feel like everything could just be compositionally tightened up a bit. So like this tiger's just like hanging out here. Maybe make these guys relate a little bit better. Maybe the tiger, I think just close in relation would help. I don't really like this photo of Joe Burrow in the background. I don't think it's needed. I think if you just had a lot of this texture in the background, like you're filling in all these white space areas with stuff. I think if you had more white space, like this is good up here. Having this is good. I think if you had this over here and made it so it didn't compete with this, I think that would make it better. And when you're making stuff with whites, like make sure the whites are matching. So like we've got, this is sort of a darker bluer white than this. This is sort of a green or yellow white. Play around with something like that. I like the texture you've got going on in the background though. I think just pull back on this. You know, you don't need this here. You don't need his face in the background. Toss one of your logos on there, and just sort of tighten things up compositionally. I think that would help in the future. A couple more to go. We've got this by Vince King. This shy graphic. Initial looking at it, I like the composition. You've got a big guy, smaller guy, sort of the same guy here. Maybe move this guy up, maybe make this guy a little bit smaller just for size contrast, but it's not too bad because it's sort of, this is the main aspect, and then these two. I like the background, what you've got going on. You've got some contrast here with the colors. You've got him blending in here. I think that works well. The shadows aren't too real to me. I think you could have made these a little, I think they're too strong. I think pull them back a little bit. Text over here I have no issue with. I think that's good. Playing with his name, playing with his signature here. I think some of the images, just from initial looks, seem a little too noise reduced. They seem a little too soft, but if that's what you were trying to do, that's fine. They're just a little too soft for me, but if they were super grainy, then that's, you got to do that because it's not going to look good otherwise. But other than that, I don't really have much to say. I mean, the photos all look the same. They all match. That's good. The effects on them are pretty solid. I think they're just a little too soft. I do like the lighting we've got going on. I would have just moved this guy up to like, so he's like here. So he's centered here essentially. And then you wouldn't really need the shadow down here at the bottom because he's too far away from the floor. And then I would have just bumped him up a little bit. So I think he's too close to the bottom here. I would have had his foot like here. So there's more spacing. Make him smaller maybe, but overall I think it's really solid graphic. And we've got this last design by Porter Gray. We've got Trey Lance trying to swim in the bay of San Francisco. The background photo's a little pixelated, but again, trying to blow up a photo like this can be hard. I do like how you have this at a slight angle instead of a straight composition, and he's moving in that way as well. I don't think the composition would have worked as well if it was perfectly straight, so I do like that. I mean, you've got light source coming from here, which matches the photo, which is solid. I mean, I would have tried to do the same thing here. I think it's a little... I think it needs to be more green to match the water. And I wouldn't have set it to screen. I would have put a blend if on it. Or set one to screen, set one to maybe color burn or color dodge. Get a little bit of color back in there so it's a little bit more realistic, because color does have some sort of shading to it. I do like how you put a little bit, you know, Trey at the bay down here. I think if you added a couple more Easter eggs like that, it would have been cool, but not really necessary at all. But overall, pretty simple composition. We've got the bay. We've got him in that. Part of me thinks, could he have been bigger and this be smaller? You know, take up more space so he's actually larger than life. Who knows? You know, you do want to show that this is the Golden Gate Bridge. So it's kind of like, you don't want to cover up too much. Just looking at like random things like this dot, probably just in the photo. Nothing you can do about that. If you want to nitpick on anything else, probably not. Cutout looks pretty good. So, all in all, pretty solid. I don't really think I would have added anything. Maybe a light lens overlay to show that the light, just really sell the light source, but I think overall it's a perfectly fine graphic. So, I think that is the last graphic. So, thank you guys again for submitting these. I will do another video like this next week. If you want to hop into my Discord, it is in the description and below. I'll be doing these critiques weekly. You can hop into my Discord. I can give you feedback immediately if you would like as well. It's just a place if you want to be around other designers, talk about design. Be in my ear more so than other people. But you guys have a lovely weekend, and I will see you guys Tuesday for the stream, and prepare this video for next week as well. So, see you guys then.